Welcome to Customer Service Academy Radio with author and customer experience expert Tony Johnson. Tony will share his vision for successful customer service, leadership, and business excellence, and speak to some of the most impactful leaders in business today. And now, here's Tony Johnson.
Hello, everybody. Customer Service Academy is on the air. I'm Tony Johnson, your customer experience speaker, consultant, and trainer. And today's episode coming to you courtesy of Ignite Your Service Training and Consulting and 4XI Global Consulting and Solutions. Truly, better together. Folks, I rarely talk about my other book, Proof Positive, but it seems like the perfect time to share this out. If you head on over to Amazon.com and check out my book, Proof Positive by Tony Johnson, you will find a great cocktail book for the cocktail lover in your life that will make a great holiday gift. They're separated by spirit. There are great holiday recipes, great things for entertaining in there, great tips on setting up your bar and really having those great events at your home. I spent a lifetime in hospitality and a lot of time in restaurants and leisure, and I will tell you this is sort of a lifetime of great drinks all in one book. Every drink has a story. There are great recipes to go along with each one. I hope you'll head on over today and order that copy of Proof Positive. You can get it on hardback, you can get it on ebook, you can get it on paperback, but go ahead and pick up a copy. Make it the best stocking stuffer for that cocktail lover in your life. Order 2 or 3 copies, give them to everybody. So again, that's Proof Positive by Tony Johnson. You can find it on Amazon.com. But as we're coming into the holiday season, and as I'm recording this, it is just a stone's throw away from Thanksgiving. And by the way, if you have not thawed your holiday turkey, you are probably having M&Ms for Thanksgiving at this point. But really think about how we're going to finish the year. And we want to make sure that as we're finishing up Q4 and heading into Q1, that you can make this the very best experience for your customers, your clients, your guests, your teams, yourself as a leader, really drive that success into the new year. But before we get started on that, just a couple of quick shout outs, because as I said, we are coming into Thanksgiving, and always a nice time to kind of pause, take that breath, and really think about the year that's been and what you're really grateful for. And for me, as I'm recording this, we are coming in just a week or so out from the government shutdown ending. And we all know there was a lot of nonsense around that, but we know that travel was really impacted by that. So just a shout out to the TSA, to air traffic control, to the airports, to the airlines. There was a lot of pressure on them, a lot of nonsense they didn't cause. And really had to double down and figure out how to get things done. I traveled right in the middle of the shutdown toward the end, but when it was really starting to ramp up and they were actually putting in those percentage decreases of traffic, and I felt it. But I will tell you that the TSA, at least at Orlando International Airport and in Cincinnati at the Covington Airport CVG, they did a great job of getting folks through TSA, did a great job of making sure they were throttling things out so we didn't have to sit on the runway very long. And I'm just really, really appreciative of the hard work and dedication they put in. So a sincere thank you there. Also, along the way, had some really great service at a couple of really fantastic hotels. You know me, I'm a Hilton guy. And really, really enjoy the hotels that think about getting it right. There is a real pleasure in going to places that think about the little details. Because as a traveler, if you're in a hotel room, and there are little things like, I've been in hotels where I've gotten up in the morning and all I've had is decaf coffee because the person doing the final room checks didn't double check that they left both tea and some coffee and some decaf. It's just kind of whatever they put a handful of as they were leaving the room, and nobody checked. And that's a real bummer at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. when you've got to toddle down to the front desk and grab some coffee. So that's a small thing, but it makes a difference. Or after a long day of travel, you get to your hotel room and the remote control for the TV doesn't work because no one's checked the batteries. That's a little thing. Or they haven't filled up the toiletries and things like that. Or they don't pick up your coffee cups, in the room because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for throwing it away, and no one's trained them how to make good decisions on how to clean a room and really have those little pieces that they really make it for a traveler and really make it a great experience. And I had some really top-notch experiences over the last couple of weeks with hotels that were really getting it right. They were doing the little things, the things that you don't notice till they're wrong, but they did a great job of making sure that there were no little nonsense inconveniences, and I just really appreciate that. So really, really shout out to Hilton for doing a really nice job with those kind of things. And then I think that's really just a great reminder in general for everyone listening. This is a great week to double down on some gratitude, on some recognition, on some thankfulness. So if you haven't done that, this is a great moment. It's like when I talk about Customer Service Week, it's always nice to have a touchstone to get you started. This is a wonderful week to be thinking about, am I showing my team enough gratitude? Am I taking the time to communicate well? Am I taking time to really make sure that they know that they're appreciated? And then they continue that for weeks and weeks and forever on afterwards. But it's always nice to have a starting pistol. And this is a wonderful time to think about getting started on that. So really think about that, because as we continue to go into the new year, it is going to be a race of acceleration. It is going to be a race of transformation. We are seeing what's happening out there with technology, with AI, and we're seeing that some folks aren't necessarily keeping up. But where you can make the biggest difference, regardless of the technological advancements out there and everything that continues to accelerate and change, one of the key places you continue to make a difference is by being that human in the loop. Being that person that can translate vision into action, being that person that knows how to communicate and listen, being that person who knows how to build relationships and give recognition. Those are the kind of leaders, I don't care what happens out there in the world, they're always going to be needed. So be that leader worth following by understanding your impact and how you can get those soft skills. And believe me, there's nothing soft about them. Making sure that you have them all tuned up. Being that amazing listener, being that amazing connector, being that amazing person who says thank you and always catches them doing it right. Those kind of leaders, they will be able to lead change in all kinds of different and amazing ways, no matter what comes at them. So as we set the stage for this is the time of year that tends to test leaders. It tends to test teams. It tends to stress test operations. We're coming into sort of that final push into the new year. And really, as I'm recording this, there's a solid 45 days left in the year, and less than that if you count in the holidays and those kinds of things. So it's really about recognizing the fact that there is a heavy workload coming, and really that you're in fatigue. I mean, it's a real thing. So we're going to talk about finishing strong and really getting ready to kind of push into that new year. So Q4 is a beast for everybody. If you've ever worked at a big company, and I spent a lot of time with large organizations, Q4 is always a beast. If this is where you finish your year, it's a lot of duck and cover. It's a lot of burn the furniture. It's a lot of we got to make that last number because we're coming into the last month of the last quarter. So if you're listening to this and you close your year in a different month, you know what it feels like. So if you close in October, for example, you know how September and October are. It's the same feeling that folks that close in December have this time of year. So we're all very familiar with that. It's one of those things where you just have to be ready for it. We all know what's coming, and it doesn't make it right, but you got to recognize those realities and get ready to really get out there and drive results. So the big risk with all of this is the reality of that year-end pressure and potentially pushing too hard. Now, you can't let up. You've got to get to the finish line. You've got to make it happen. But really, this is a time when stats show that customer patience decreases about 30%. Their ability to want to make a second call, to make a second visit, to ask a follow-up question. Customers and clients, this is absolutely the time of year when you've got to make sure you get it right the first time. Customer effort in Q3 and Q4 are absolutely crucial to your success. And not for nothing, employee burnout tends to spike the last 8 weeks of the year, and we are well inside that. If you look at the data, this is the time when folks are trying to make decisions about what they're going to do next year. What are they going to do in January? It's that time of renewal. It's that time of change. It's also that time to consider if you're going to be job hunting or want to change jobs. And if that's the case, you are more than likely making those decisions right now. You are updating that resume. You are looking on LinkedIn. You are applying for jobs. And because frankly, employers right now are doing a lot of behind the scenes recruiting and hiring, knowing that they might get fresh budgets in January, and they want to be ready to drive into that new year strong by having team members ready to go. So they are making job offers right now for teams that are going to start in the new year. So if your teams are probably going to get poached, they are probably in the middle of getting poached right now. And so that really is a business case for making sure your team stays sharp and that they stay engaged. And really creating clarity is huge around that. It's one of those things where communication, recognition, and overall understanding about what's expected of them at work, those are the things that employees say are lacking in most employers. So if you can make sure that there is clarity around what they're supposed to do, that they understand what the mission is and how they can contribute, they will absolutely perform better. But again, it's the same old thing. They always say, my boss doesn't tell me anything, my boss never tells me a good job, and my boss never teaches or trains me to do anything. Those are always the big Gallup bugaboos. So they'll be no different this year, but now's the time to make sure that folks know you have a plan for that. It's also the time to make sure that you're protecting their rest and vacation. It could be very tempting with big projects to say, we need to skinny back the holiday break, or we need to skinny back days off, or we need to think about canceling vacations. Just stop right there. It's one of those things that never a good thing to do. And it's also a really great time, as I said earlier, to double down on this whole idea of employee recognition and this idea of appreciation and gratitude going in. You want people to feel like they're welcomed and that they belong there, and that will make it harder for them to leave. And it's also really back into that core fundamental principle you've heard me say 8 million times. If you take great care of your team, they will absolutely take great care of your customers, clients, and consumers, and that will be the perception of what people think of you in the market, of your brand, and of your company. So just remember how very important that is. And it's also a time not to take your foot off the pedal when it comes to customer and guest experience, because it is so easy to say, oh, we'll get to that in December. Oh, my clients can wait till the new year. Oh, this, oh, that. So just know this is still a time to continue to drive forward, to really push that basics of really delivering safety, of delivering that amazing hospitality, of quality, of making it easy to do business with you, and bringing value to what you're bringing to your customers and your consumers and your guests, because you don't want to be the organization that's always seen as, oh, boy, they sure do blow it in Q4, or December is always a mess with them, or they get really sloppy toward the end of the year, but then they clean up their act in January. You don't want to be those guys. So make sure that you're finishing really, really well and that you're not really taking your foot off that pedal, because you want to protect that quality into the end of the year, because that's going to be your reputation. That's what people think of you. That's what people are talking about. And you want to be that either employer of choice or that brand of choice for team members and for customers as you go into the new year. So it's really important to make sure that you are protecting that. You do not want to be the folks who are known for blowing it in December because you get lazy. So really keep pushing there. And that goes for you as a leader as well. Again, it's really easy. I'm watching really large organizations right now. A lot of them have checked out. A lot of folks right now going into Thanksgiving, they're really not going to be very visible as leaders till the new year. They're going to take a week at Thanksgiving. If you look at the Christmas holiday and how it falls this year, it makes it really easy to try to squeak in 2 weeks off, which is fine, but you can't just disconnect and disappear. You've got to make sure there's a plan. So whether you're taking care of your team or taking care of your clients or customers, you can't turn into smoke just because it's the holiday season. So make sure that you are visible and present. Or if you're not, you got to have a plan. How are you going to keep things going? Who's in charge while you're gone? Is your team enabled and empowered to continue to drive? Communicate more than you think you need to this time of year, because that's going to model calm and not chaos. You don't want to be, a panic monkey or someone that just vanishes this time of year, because really staying focused on those priorities, really showing that they matter to you all the way to the end, that will make sure they never start to think of, well, it can just wait till January. We'll just get it done then. And so that's going to help strengthen that culture as opposed to fracture it. And so because your teams, they're looking at you to say, okay, how am I going to behave? How am I going to act? What is my leader doing? If you model those really good behaviors and do it all the way to the finish line, they're going to know that even when folks are tempted to take their foot off the gas, their leader is getting it done. And that's an important piece, because there's two things to think about here. You're trying to make sure you're delivering quality and consistency and amazing customer service and team engagement all the way to the end of the year. But then you're also shifting to make sure that you can hit the ground running in 26, because that is the reality. There is no time to waste. And if you've been looking at what's happening out there in the marketplace, I mean, there's an acceleration in business we have not seen since probably the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. When we think about where we're moving, if you're going to win, you're getting ready now. And I know that sounds like it's early, and I know it also sounds like a bumper sticker, but it's the reality of everything. If you're not getting ready right now, you are already 2 months behind. So make sure that you're thinking about the 3 lanes that you absolutely have to drive if you want to drive business growth, because business growth is the output. We've talked about this before. The 3 lanes you've got to drive are your customer, your client, or your guest experience, whatever lane you play in there, whatever nomenclature you use, or your consumer experience if you're a packaged good or something that maybe doesn't have direct B2B applications there or B2C applications. If you're not serving a customer directly face on, you might have consumers instead of customers. But whoever they are, whoever your end customer or consumer or guest is, you've got to make sure that you stay focused. You got to make sure you stay focused on your team and driving their experience, and you've got to make sure you're ready to deliver as a leader and make sure that your teams are enabled and empowered. And if you can do that, that's going to be your chance to drive ultimately the business growth you're looking for. So you got to ask yourself, what are you going to keep? What are you going to stop? What are you going to do different? That start, stop, continue. It's an old platitude, but boy, I'll tell you what, it really works. Now is the time to be thinking about that. So let's break them down. Let's think about the customer or the guest, the consumer experience in 2026. So regardless of what market you play in, hyper-personalization backed by humanity, or that human in the loop, if you will, That's going to be what really drives it, because you need that acceleration of technology. You need to make sure that your customers know that you know them, that you get them, that you are tailoring offers for them, but also that you're doing it in a way that doesn't feel creepy. But there are so many different ways to do that. I mean, Amazon does a tremendous job of that. There's always the recommendations. The algorithm on Netflix continues to deliver well. It's why my wife won't let me watch anything in her feed so I don't mess it up, right? But it's really important to note that that is a great algorithm. And then you've got companies like Ritz-Carlton, for example, that have really great documentation of their highest value guests. And when you check in to a Ritz-Carlton, if you're a regular, they're going to know what kind of wine you like in your room. They're going to know what kind of room it is you like. They're going to know what amenities really make you happy as a high value lifetime guest. So they're going to know all those things about you because they take the time to ask, to understand, to listen, to watch, and then to document. But more importantly, then they take action on that. Because consistency will beat cleverness every single time. So this whole idea of using science and data to enable hospitality, it's not a new thing, but it will absolutely drive emotional connectivity if you do it right. Now, there's a wrong way to do it where you sound like a super creeper, but if you do it right, if you know people's names, if you know their preferences, if you get to know them just a little bit, it's down to the fact that when I walk into my local Starbucks, they know that I like a venti dark roast with no room for cream. It's a really small thing, but it matters. The other day I got on a Delta Airlines flight, and the person had written, the pilot, mind you, the pilot had written a note to all of the platinum and diamond medallion members who were on that flight. The captain of the flight sat down and wrote a nice little thank you note to every single person that fell within that category. And when I sat down, it was waiting for me at my seat. That was a really nice touch. And I asked the flight attendant if that was just something that they were doing because of the government shutdown and the delays and stuff. And she said, no. She's like, this guy does this every time. This guy sits down whenever he has time before a flight, when he's there on time and he's not rushing to get the plane off the ground. He will sit and write out those little thank you notes and put them out personally himself in everybody's place setting so that it's there when they get on the plane. And he's a regular, and he's well known for doing that. So just a shout out to Delta on the flight back last Saturday from Covington, Kentucky to Orlando, Florida. That captain absolutely made my day. It was a nice little note to get. So really did appreciate that. But that's one of those little things where you can support personalization without having to go overboard, without having to feel creepy, and without having to engage too much technology. That was just a very quick look to see what the diamond and platinum medallion members were, writing up a quick note and getting them in their seat before they started boarding. Really nice touch. It's also a place, if you're going to win customer experience this year, journey mapping is continuing to drive results there. So it really helps you look at that journey from end to end. How does a guest or a customer interact with your brand, and what are those key touch points? What are the expectations at each one? How do you make it simpler at each touch point? How do you smooth off those rough edges and answer questions before they even have to ask them, to make it just as easy as possible? But the really great brands understand the path that a customer takes through their company or their brand every single time, so they can make it better every single time. And customers are going to continue to reward brands that reduce hassles, increase personalization and warmth, and really create that sense of they get me. They're going to keep coming back again and again for sure. Now, when we think about the employee experience, so this is a competitive battleground. The more that you can bring role clarity, the more that you can give better feedback, the tighter you can get your coaching and your overall engagement. That's how you're going to continue to drive employee experience and retention, because they're still going to continue to walk across the street. They're going to continue to leave organizations. Team members they're not going to be those 15-year employees that we're used to in the past. We all know that. But how can we keep great team members for as long as we can, continuing to upskill them and advance them through the organization, give them a reason to stay and a path to growth? And that will be the reasons that team members tend to stay around longer with some organizations than with others. So when you build that development into the workflow, when they can count on those opportunities to get coaching, to get training, to get development, when recognition is something that is a core value of the leaders that lead them every day, those are the team members that are going to want to stay. Those are the organizations that are going to have a better reputation. It's going to be easier to recruit. It's never going to be easy, but it'll be easier to recruit, and it's going to be much easier to retain them over the long haul. Now, again, the long haul, never going to be the 25 years we used to keep people, but I would rather keep an amazing employee for 5 years as opposed to keeping a mediocre employee for 20. So make sure that you have real career paths for those frontline workers. What does it mean to come into an organization at the entry level? How can they grow and evolve and increase their role and increase what they can make as a salary and grow within the organization? How can they do that? And do they understand that? And is it really obvious? And then the other thing, this is sort of the bonus tip. Think about every silly policy you've got that does nothing but make their jobs harder and get rid of them in the new year. Just think about what those are right now. In fact, go ask them. Go ask them what's making their jobs harder than it needs to be and fix it all going into 2026. And then think about your growth as a leader. Think about what kind of leader you want to be in 2026. That's the $50,000 question or the $1 million or the $1 billion question we should all be asking ourselves right now. Because what you don't want to be is a traffic cop. You want to be a coach. You want to understand that in this AI-enabled world, and the genie's out of the bottle there, right? And we can say what we will about its accuracy and its efficacy and all the things. It's an enabler, it's an accelerator, and it's here to stay, and it's only going to become more prevalent in business. So your presence, your human-in-the-loop presence, translating this stuff into action, actually getting things done, because right now, AI can't necessarily serve a customer, face to face at a restaurant or something like that right now. So we still need people and leaders to deliver these things. How can you be the best version of that? How can you train your managers? If you're a leader with leaders, how can you train them to be better communicators? How to be better emotionally intelligent? How to be better at adaptability? How can you help them embrace AI, but retain the human connection that it's going to take to drive results there? Because that's going to be how you're going to support hospitality and customer experience excellence and this whole idea of culture going into the years to come. Because accountability, adaptability, empathy, the ability to listen and communicate, the ability to bring teams together and resolve conflict, those are the things that are going to really matter going into the new year. So I want you to really think about how you're going to lead yourself through this. How are you going to lead your team? And then how are you going to lead your organization? Because as a leader, you have impact inside of your organization as well. So you have to continue to lead up and down and sideways in every direction, especially as organizational charts become flatter and they become blurrier. It's going to be really important that, communication and building relationships and having that ability to be able to persuade people, to communicate, to help move the needle on things and make sure that folks really do understand the importance of what you're trying to accomplish, both organizationally and from the employees that are taking care of customers, clients, and consumers every single day. So this idea of you being able to build relationships and communicate well, that is going to be a powerful tool for you as a leader. So as we continue to talk about this 2026 readiness checklist, I really hope you're enjoying today's podcast. And if you are, scroll on down, say something nice, leave 5 stars, really share this out with your network. Help keep Customer Service Academy one of the top customer experience and leadership podcasts in the world. And thank you to FeedSpot for continuing to keep us on their list. We really appreciate that. So as we come into 26, again, as I said, there's a little checklist I want you to think about. When you think about where you're strong, when you think about where the cracks are, and when you think about what you need to upgrade. Now, again, this is sort of that start, stop, continue mindset, but that's a really important question to ask right now. Are you developing your leaders fast enough? And more importantly, are you developing team members and leaders in things that are going to be relevant next? Not what is relevant now, because what's relevant now isn't going to be relevant in 3 months. So make sure that you're looking around the corner and saying, okay, what am I going to need in the next 90 days, in the next 6 months, in the next 3 years, in the next 10 years? What is it looking like? And get ahead of that. Are you aligning on what your customers want? Do you understand them well enough? And are you developing and delivering things that are important and bring value to them? Are you prioritizing your employee experience? Are you taking the time to really ensure that you're eliminating those silly hassles, they have a path to development, and you're creating a place where you can be thought of as being an employer of choice, a place where people want to work, not where they have to work? So think about that. And then finally, are you building an organization that's going to be ready for the future of what employees want and what your customers want now and into the future? Are you building that framework now? So that's a really important piece. So as we think about what's next, what do we do with all of this? This is the time to understand that you're going to be the one that has to act. As a leader, it falls to you. So whether you're in a large business and you have to influence a large organization, or you're a small business, medium-sized business, a business owner or entrepreneur, you're the one that has to make it happen. So this is you taking the horns. This is you taking the reins and saying, I've got to act right now. I've got to start thinking about this stuff. If you haven't already, now is the time. So that's what I'm asking you to do. Take that step back, ask the questions that we just ran through, and start putting some answers on paper and start thinking about how do you make change going into the new year, because it starts now. You've got to think about how to celebrate your progress and acknowledge the challenges and start to think about what success looks like going into 2026, because that's going to be a powerful way for you to be the leader that can really drive results within your organization. So keep leading with hospitality, keep leading with clarity and purpose, and understand that helping your team win, your customers win, and your business win, that is your role as a leader. Driving these successful outcomes will lead to sales growth. And these pieces around driving your leadership, driving your team experience, driving your guest or customer experience, that is going to be how you make it happen. And it starts right now. You can do it. It's not too late. You've just got to sit down and put the effort in, go through the checklist, run the plays, and get ready to get out there and crush it in 2026. So folks, that is our show. Remember, we are still in the middle of the Great Service Comeback. It is something that never stops, and going into 2026, we're an amazing time to make your mark on your organization and really drive business results that will be sustainable for many, many years to come if you follow the steps we laid out today. So until next time, I've been Tony Johnson, your customer experience speaker, consultant, and trainer, reminding you to keep your customers and your teams at the center of everything you do, because that's where the most amazing things are possible. Thanks for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving, and I will talk to you next week.
This has been Customer Service Academy Radio with Tony Johnson. Tony is available to speak at your event, meeting, or workshop. Have a powerful customer-focused day.